Welcome to another episode of Distory with Kate and Kirk. My name is Kirk from walruscarpet.com, and welcome to a new year and the very first episode of Distory in 2026. Now, just because it's a new year doesn't mean it's a new topic. We are going to be into the Tower of Terror in DCA as well as Disneyland Paris. We are currently in the boiler room section, and to cover that off and explore all the details that are hidden within these walls is Kate, the Disney Cicerone. Kate, yo, how you doing in the new year?
Yeah, new year, same topic.
New year, not new me.
No, and I think we've been in this since May of 2025. It's been a while, so but it's been a great journey, and we're almost done, almost all the way through it. So we are going to go to the boiler room this time. Instead of Florida, we're going to go to California Adventure and Disneyland Paris and see what are the differences between the Florida version and the budget tower, if you want to call it that, but the different version of the tower that they made afterwards. So we're going to start just kind of revisiting the concept art for Imagineering for the Florida version of what they wanted you to see. And I do have the show info guide from Imagineering for California Adventure specifically that I just want to go through, because this is actually, some of it is very poetically written, Kirk. So I really love this. The ambiance and the intention of this space that they lay out here is really different than what we've heard before. So this says, as guests leave the library and enter the boiler room, they pass an entirely different type of hotel space. This back of house area is not meant for guests and thus is not lavishly, elegantly detailed and finished. The design intent here is the creation of a heavy industrial working space filled with a looming, shadowy menace. This space is characterized by iron, rust, and dangerous-looking machinery. Massive furnaces sigh and glow, their grating suggesting malevolent faces. Heavy chains hang from the ceiling 2 stories high. Lighting and sound effects contribute enormously to the atmosphere and amplify the overall tone of dark and dread. If the lobby and library are indicative of the comfort and luxury once offered by this fine hotel, the boiler room stands in stark contrast. This is not a friendly, comfortable place, but a suggestion of what lies ahead in this service elevator. Which, I mean, that person deserves a raise. Whoever wrote that, it's really well done, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if you are just listening to this, that paints a very distinctive picture. And if you're watching this, then you're probably staring at that picture.
Yeah. I also have the story synopsis from the show info guide, which is similar but not exactly the same and has a really wonderful line in it. So this says, the boiler room is 2 stories tall with 3 load platforms on each level. This is a back of house portion of the hotel, not usually meant for guests. Here, the grandeur, detail, and polish of the lobby are gone. The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror is a utilitarian industrial working environment. The surfaces are concrete, the machinery rusted iron. The equipment, props, lighting, and sound effects combine to create a sinister, shadowy environment. Lights flicker, sounds come and go, and shadows move, as if the dark heart of the hotel was sputtering back to life. The muffled, echoing sounds of machinery, chains, and heating ducts seem to float through the room in waves. Like, is it the dark heart of the hotel sputtering back to life? Like, goodness, isn't that a great way of describing this space?
Yeah, totally. Because I mean, it does feel very vacant and desolate, even though you do have the bellhops.
Right.
Right. You feel very much alone, even though you're surrounded by things.
Right. And we even heard from the bellhops in the previous episode that, even the way that they're supposed to interact in this space is supposed to be a bit darker, a bit more ominous than the previous ones, because they're supposed to be kind of, warning you that something is going to happen here. So let's head into the transition corridor. This is the space after you leave the library and then you go into this hallway that's headed then into the boiler room. This is different than the Florida version because we're going to have a 2-story queue instead of a single story that just kind of splits. And the Queen's Library on the left side goes to the upper queue and the King's Library on the right goes to the lower queue. So that's why you see this division in the hallway that you don't see in Florida. And I do want to mention that for those of you who are watching this, we apologize that our photos are not a little bit more crisp and clear. There's very little photos that we found that were great from this time period, mainly because this ride doesn't exist anymore in California, and it also I only have a few from my time in Paris. So But we do have photos, we do have things to show you, and with some really interesting stuff that we found. That being said, I want to take you to the employee bulletin board. This one is from the auction when they sold the one from DCA, so you can see a good up-close view of what this is on this board that's not in the dark. The ones on the right side are fairly illegible just from these photos, so unfortunately I can't see them, but we do know that this is a way that the employees can like post messages or of things to each other, or things that are for sale, or those kinds of things. And so I do want to mention some things that we can see what they are. So one is this poster that is Work Pays for America, and it has prosperity on it. And so this has a farmer and a laborer shaking hands over a wheat stalk. This is for the Works Progress Administration, which we see at the bottom, the WPA, which was a major New Deal program created in 1935 under Franklin D. Roosevelt to combat massive unemployment during the Great Depression. It put millions of Americans to work building roads, bridges, schools, parks, and public buildings, and also funded artists, writers, musicians, and actors through programs like the Federal Art Project and Federal Writers Project. The WPA wasn't charity. It emphasized dignity through work, wages, and national recovery, and it permanently shaped America's infrastructure and cultural records. So some of the major icons that we still have around today from the WPA is like LaGuardia Airport in New York City, Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, Key West's overseas highway bridges were built by the WPA, and also Timberline Lodge in Mount Hood, Oregon, where they filmed the exterior shots of The Shining, which is tied to the tower in its corridor scene, and our early brainstorming that we've heard from Imagineering that we won't get into again, but just kind of a fun connection there. This poster in particular reflects New Deal messaging, so labor, both agricultural and industrial, as the foundation of national strength. This is stylized, kind of modern figures here. It's an interesting design because it has this bold typography, and it's hallmarks of WPI poster design influenced by Art Deco and European modernism. And these posters were meant to be easily readable, uplifting, and accessible, displayed in post offices, libraries, schools, and public buildings. So they're displaying it here because it's a work area, and it's up on the bulletin board. But beyond just propaganda, they're now recognized as some of the most important examples of American graphic design in the 20th century, which I think is pretty cool as a designer. There's also other WPA posters on this bulletin board, like the Work Promotes Confidence poster. This is what it looks like up close. And then I have this one here, which is a Works Progress Administration Federal Theater Project poster advertising a performance of Last Night of Don Juan at the Muse Art Theater in Los Angeles. So this poster, this is what it looks like a little bit clearer for you. It was created under the Federal Theater Project, which was a division of the WPA, which employed actors, directors, designers, and printers during the Great Depression. It promotes a publicly funded theatrical production, emphasizing affordability. All seats reserved, summer prices 25 cents. So working class audiences could attend live theater. And I did actually look up, Kirk, that this theater is a real theater that existed in South Figueroa.
Okay.
So this is what it looked like, or at least like a sketch of what it was. This little theater and Institute of Fine Arts on South Figueroa Street near Pico Corner, home of the Egan School. So I guess it changed name a couple of times, and that's why on this poster it says formerly Egan at the top of it, because the name of the theater actually changed. But you might be asking, what in the world is the Last Night of Don Juan? I feel like that's the question, right?
He settled down. He got married.
Well, not exactly. So The Last Night of Don Juan is a dramatic poem by Edmund Rostand, the author of Cyrano de Bergerac, that reimagines the Don Juan legend, focusing on his final night as he confronts the devil and his own inability to love, ultimately leading to his damnation. So, very uplifting tale.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it wasn't the original tale of Don Juan, which was from 1630, I believe. But this is, that's what that was about. So, interestingly enough, there's also a post in this bulletin board for the employees of the tower to participate in their own play. So, I couldn't make out all of this, but I could make out a good portion of it. So I think it says like new tower players present Where Is Everybody, which is the name of the very first Twilight Zone episode, but they're using it as the name of their play. And it says open auditions for, I think it says the first production tonight, 9 to 11 p.m. I might say the ballroom. I couldn't quite make that out. And then they needed some people for technical positions, including a lighting designer, a costume designer, and a whole bunch of other ones that were hard to read. And then it says, no experience necessary, but helpful. So they're arranging their own play of the very first episode of The Twilight Zone for the Tower players, which I thought was really fun. There's also some houses for rent. So they had them on a list, and there's also a photo of a house there. But these I looked up, and Kirk, you could get in the weeds for all of these because they're basically just listing different features of different houses, right? There's like a modern double apartment. There's something that's listed at 412 South Norton. There's 4-room and sleeping porch on one. There's a 4-room upper, and it says like 2607 unfurnished 2.5 bath deck porch. And, mostly what I want for people to take away from this is all these addresses that I looked up, they're real places in LA. So this is not addresses they made up. They're real places. And so I thought that was fun that they took the accuracy of like real locations around LA that could be rented. So there's a couple other things on this bulletin board. Kirk, do you want to go over a few of those?
Yeah, let's talk about the word I could read tonight. I noticed underneath tonight there's a flyer for an annual costume ball, which makes perfect sense considering that it is Halloween night, and it is for employees and their families. Families is kind of cut off there, but you can tell that it's definitely like employees and friends and families are invited to this costume ball. It's not just employees. And then there are ribbons on the left-hand side. I don't know what the awards are for, but you can definitely see that the yellow and there is a white ribbon. I can't tell what place they are in, but they are definitely for a first, second, or third place on there.
Isn't white like third, maybe? I feel like there's like red.
Maybe the white one's third. Do you think that the gold is first?
Blue is usually first, red is second, and I think white is third.
Okay. Hi. Welcome, everyone in Distory. I never won awards. Kate wins a lot of awards, so she knows exactly what the ribbon color is. Just a little difference in how we grew up.
Okay, but listen. Here's how I know that, because I was scarred for life. Okay, ready? This is a little tiny rabbit trail.
I need to
quite
hear
frankly.
This.
This is actually a rabbit trail because I used to show rabbits in 4-H when I was a kid. And I had to ride my bicycle like 4 miles to get to the fair in order to make my like appointment to show my rabbit at the fair. And so my mom wasn't available to drive me. So I rode my bike by myself, and it was the middle of summer. And so I wore shorts because I was really hot. And so they were going to give me a blue ribbon, and they literally took it back and exchanged it for a red because I was wearing shorts that day.
Oh, you're not allowed to wear shorts when you show rabbits.
Have to wear long pants as part of your professionalism. And nobody had ever told me that, or I would have brought some to change into, but I didn't know. And so I did not get my blue ribbon, and now I'm scarred for life.
Yo, right now, all I keep thinking is you look like that girl who, I think it's like Hogs or something at the 4-H, where she has like a real like serious stare. And she's like swatting the pigs as they like move around. I imagine you with the bunny, real serious, like holding,
you have to like make
showing
him,
its gait, elongate him, showing him his ear flap.
I had a Holland Lop that was my friend's rabbit that I got to show. And so I still to this day, I know exactly how to show a rabbit's teeth and present them to a judge. So,
how do you do that?
You have to like
imagine you have a fake rabbit in front of you.
You have to grab their ears and like the scruff of their neck, and then you flip them upside down and tuck their back feet under your arm, and then you flip them like this, and then you can like open their mouth. It's essentially to show their teeth, to make sure their teeth are healthy and not overgrown.
That's crazy.
So new skills that Kate doesn't ever use anymore. That's
a shame, man. You should be looking at rabbit teeth all the time. If I had that kind of power.
I know.
One other thing I wanted to mention about with the Work Pays America, one of the other like larger things I just remember from my time in history is like this is when the Hoover Dam actually got started.
Yeah.
So it was actually under a different agency. It was under the Public Works Administration, which was similar to the Works Progress Administration, but essentially they came up with a bill that was called, or an act. It was called the Boulder Canyon Project Act of 1928. And it was introduced by Senator Johnson, and passed in the Senate on December 14th and signed by Calvin Coolidge by December 21st. And then they finally placed the very first amount of concrete on June 6th in 1933 for the Hoover Dam. There's nothing like, I wish there was like something like Tower-esque to tell you like, oh, this happened at this specific time. They were generating 704,000 kilowatts of power, making it the largest hydroelectric facility in the world in 1939. And they had all these A7 and A6 generators back then. So kind of interesting. I don't know, like boilers are making, steam and stuff and hydroelectric energy. I don't know.
I really think it is really good place setting too for, the fact that the people that would have been working in the maintenance room in particular, or clocking in to the tower, the employees at the tower, the idea of, going to work and the 1930s and after the Great Depression and all those kind of leftovers of that. We don't see any of that in the Florida version. So it's really interesting that they decided to put it in the California one,
We're on Florida time, bro. We're chilling. It's like an island, basically, We need one more side and we're surrounded.
We're focused in California. I'm like, we gotta make this thing work.
Dude, it's called Florida for a reason. We're chilling. We ain't worrying about nothing.
Well said. Okay. Next to the bulletin board, we do have a telephone, which is is this public or long distance telephone. And I found one that's very similar to it, where you have these like circles in the top where you can put the different amounts of money, quarters, dimes, nickels. And then it has a rotary dial on it as well. This one, of course, is green and the one in the tower is black, but I did find that one. Did you find anything about the phone, Kirk?
Brother, can you spare a dime?
Yeah.
That was a very famous Great Depression song for those that don't understand Great Depression song history. This is it's a coin-operated rotary pay station style telephone, which is kind of interesting. Like, why do they have a payphone down there? Like, they make all their employees pay, and like, how many people are going down in the boiler room? Not that many, I mean, it's like, I don't know. I think that was weird.
It's got to be for employees. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, but like it's still like as of all there's telephones in the other tower. None of them are coin op. I'm not really sure why. And the only two major coin ops out there were Bell and Western Electric. Those were the only two like major ones, but I couldn't specifically find who it was. But more than likely, it's a Western Electric model.
Yeah, I did find kind of a sign for what you would see posted near a public telephone that kind of gives you a better picture of the bell on it, and it says local and long distance telephone and public telephone. And I think that's because the calls were really expensive back then, so they didn't want to have to pay for their employees to make calls. I'm sure that's what it is,
Dr. Channing's office, please hold.
Then we have this sign nearby that just shows direction signs similar to the one in Florida. It says boiler, laundry, maintenance, basement level. The one in Disneyland Paris, this is the only time you see French, pretty much, except for, I think, maybe closer to the load area. But like anything that legally they have to have it in this language, it is there. But otherwise, they're trying to keep you in California in your mind, in Hollywood. But this says sortie for exit. So that is the difference between that and the one that is in California, which does have exit, but they say exactly the same thing. Anyway, the other thing we see here is there's a sign that says 13 days without an accident, which is, of course, 13 is for the story that you're going to go up to, and then you fall in the elevator. So 13 is an ominous number. Anyway, we've talked about that an awful lot, and this is what it looks like. I think this one is Paris and this one is DCA. I'm not entirely sure. They might be the same.
Okay.
And then this one, this is from California Adventure. We then have what is a time clock. Kirk, do you want to chat with us about time clocks a little bit?
I can chat time clocks. Pardon my untimeliness for the time clock. Don't make me late. Dude, I used to have to clock in people at Best Buy all the time. They'd be like, dude, I'm going to be like 5 minutes late. You can clock me in. I'll be like, yo, I got you.
Yeah. I used to do that.
Yeah, dude.
That's what we did.
You got to look after your fellow man. You never know. You might be late one day.
And I do want to note before you jump in that the clock both in California Adventure, also the one in Paris, they're both stopped at 8:05. which is the time that all the clocks stop at because it gets hit by lightning, and also 8 plus 5 equals 13. So just to mention that before we jump in. But go ahead, Kirk, tell us about time clocks.
I mean, not all the clocks. We see a bunch of mechanical ones that still keep going, but any of the electric ones, boogie woogie.
Anything that's attached to like the electricity of the building.
Yeah, it all stops at the same time.
Right.
So. But if you are confused and you see other clocks at different times, they're mechanical and they're not electric.
Right.
Anywho's, so this is a mechanical employee time clock or time recorder. This is a punch clock style. So like you have the time clock, and then to the right is a stack of the time cards for every single employee would have one. And the way they worked is you would find your time card, you would insert the core card in the top, and you would pull a lever or push a handle, and a machine would then stamp the current time on the card in the correct row. So the in row would be when you're starting, and then the out row would be when you're leaving. The clock movements are fairly accurate, especially like these ones, like the electric ones are relatively new. I found a variation, and it's the one up here. This one actually utilizes almost like a grandfather clock like movement on it. So like it actually like ticks and chimes. It's actually the only one that I could find that had a similar face to it. Obviously the coloration, but the coloration really doesn't matter. There weren't that many metal variants of time clocks, to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like they added some embellishments to this, but maybe I just couldn't find the right one, because I looked at a lot of different time clocks.
Yeah.
The print head would have ink on it, and then it would be a spring-loaded hammer that would press against that ink ribbon. I always kept on thinking, like, what if you screw up? Like I'm sure that had to have happened all the time.
But you like punch it wrong?
Yeah, you punch it wrong. Like that has to happen all the time. And you're like, but people would do improper punches when they were electric too. Like throughout all of my jobs, people would be like, oh, I need to do a time, like a fix or whatever.
Right.
I
have it says when they inserted the card into the clock and they pulled the lever, it caused the machine to stamp the exact time via gears and inked ribbon and the correct row. And inside it's a spring-driven clock mechanism, often synchronized daily, advancing the card position so in, out, lunch, and end of day punches line up properly, creating a clear, auditable record for payroll. So the interesting thing about this is it says that these clocks enforce punctuality and fairness. Late arrivals were visible, overtime was measurable, and wages could be calculated without relying on supervisors' memory. By the late 1930s, brands like IBM had refined them into sturdy, tamper-resistant fixtures that became a defining symbol of industrial era work discipline.
People were breaking into them.
That was the equivalent of people signing people in at Best Buy, right?
Yeah. The only thing that I saw was there's like a card positioning guide for that would set what day time it is. I've never actually used a time card punch style like this for clocking in.
This is like
and by the time I was in the workforce, they all had moved to, because when you actually look up IBM ones, they're all like fancy, very small. They're like,
right.
The size of a Pop-Tart box,
Right.
And they're all electric. So that's got to be different than this. Like, I wonder if there's a gearing set. Like, so for example, if you're the foreman, you go in there, you lift up that hood and like change the guide so that when all the normies come in and they press it, it's like perfect. But if that's like manually set, because I doubt, maybe the mechanic, I don't know enough about these. Somebody's got to tell me, because I'm now that's very interesting to me.
Yeah.
How that guide gets positioned or rotated. Does it rotate through the operation of the clock mechanics? Because that is a really, really cool functionality if it does that.
So it's the spring-driven clock mechanism that was synchronized daily. So my guess is there's something inside there that makes it so that it knows exactly what's supposed to be doing. I don't know.
There's a very tiny mouse. He's got an accounting outfit on it and a pair of spectacles. And he's like, oh my God, what time is it? What time?
That's it. It's a tiny mouse inside.
That's what it is.
Exactly what he's doing. You heard it here first on Distory. So I did find a few historical photos of people clocking in to their various jobs, but you can see all of the time cards there. And they're clocking in, clocking out for the day.
All the Gen Zers in here. Clock it. Let's go.
And then I did find some historical versions, like you did, of the time clocks just to see what they look like, the antiques.
Oh, look at these guys clocking in.
Yeah. And this is one, too, that you can see the actual time cards. It's very similar to what we see in this attraction. So really interesting piece of machinery that we don't see anymore, because it's totally extinct. There's no need for them because of technology. But it's a fascinating thing, punching in, punching out. Doing that.
Oh, dude, the amount of stress at ShopRite and Best Buy. Yes. I can't tell you.
Oh, yeah. I had the Best Buy stress. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a chronically late person anyway. So I would always be like down to the minute. Like I'm just barely there on time, or I'd make it in the 5-minute grace period. I really took advantage of that a lot. So. Okay. Let's head on into the boiler room. I do want to say thank you to the Land of Shadow and Substance blog for their collection of historical photos from DCA, and also there's some from Paris. And they also made this kind of rough sketch of what we're looking at here. So I want to give full credit to them. Make sure you support their blog if you're interested in the tower. They've got lots of really interesting information there. This is what it's going to look like. You can see the library exits into the hallway, which we just went through. And this is the lower path that we're going to go on first. So this is the lower queue. We're going to see the man in boiler, which we'll talk about that. We're going to walk by a whole bunch of pipes, valves, and gauges. We're going to go by some dripping water and then around the corner to the right, past the face-shaped boiler into the loading area and see the mechanic's desk with the radio along the way. So that's what's coming up here. Let's travel on in. I do have this storyboard art that we saw in Florida, in the Florida version, which I thought I'd just bring back here because it does show kind of a 2-story queue in it that they didn't end up doing for Florida. And this says, guests proceed along a suspended walkway that leads them to the load area. I feel like we see a lot more of this style of suspended walkways and grading and whatnot. There's more of it in the California and Paris versions than there is in Florida. They do have some of that in Florida, but it's just different. Would you agree, Kirk?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So I just thought I would bring that back just in case you hadn't seen the original Imagineering storyboards at all. If you're joining us just for this California part of this series, you can see it there.
I love the catwalk.
Yeah, me too. It's really fun.
You could be at the ground floor of this, right? And remember, like it doesn't really feel like you're in a 2-story structure, but because you're on that elevated platform, it just gives this like ominous vibe. But then it also allows them to place much larger things around you to make you feel almost, I don't know, like overpowered by ominous looking, rusty metal monsters.
Yeah, I feel like it also could play with your fear of heights because you're going into an attraction that has falling involved with it.
Oh, God. Oh.
The idea of catwalks, either that there's people walking above you or that you're up above looking down at things, it also kind of plays on that fear of heights as well. So let's head into the lower queue. One of the first things we see is this glowing boiler that's straight ahead. And this was so interesting, Kirk, because this is I feel like, hold on, we got to have a real moment here. Back up. Because I feel like
Kate, our real moment is about a boiler, girl.
Oh, yeah. Because I just want to say, I think that the storytelling in Florida is so much more subtle than it is here in California and Paris.
Okay.
I feel like it kind of beats you over the head with how scary it is here. It's more terrifying. And part of that is because of this boiler, okay? We've seen a lot of boilers in our day, right? So we're no stranger to a good boiler here on Distory. But this one that is glowing, it has a sign on it in red that says, man in boiler. And the only reason that you put that sign on a boiler is if there's somebody doing maintenance inside the boiler who you should not light the boiler because they're inside it.
Yeah, that boiler's lit.
So that's implying that there's a man in the boiler and the boiler is on. And so
that dude's fried up.
Right, which is horrifying. Right?
I mean, On an average day, yeah. I would say when you're walking in, the last thing you're thinking in Disney is that they're burning a man alive repeatedly forever.
Right. And that's exactly what this says. And so I did find some actual signs, historical signs from the 1930s for man in boiler. This one shows a man actually physically working in the boiler. Like he's taken a ladder, climbed on inside, and he's like inside. And so they would put these symbols on the outside, a sign that they could hang to warn people not to fire the boiler because there could be somebody inside it. So this is what it looks like. This is from the Stonehouse 1928 catalog, a design known as the National Safety Council danger sign. But this is what you can see. It says, "Look out, there is danger wherever you see this emblem." So it's kind of like a diamond with like a cross inside and a red circle. So that sign is what they would put on virtually anything that you need to pay attention to. So men working above, something might fall on you, man in boiler. So we can see that here, which is ironically not the sign that they used here in California. If I were them, if I was Imagineering, I would have used this sign because this is historically accurate. But
yeah, if they would have did the "Look out, there's danger wherever you see this emblem, man in boiler."
Mm-hmm. Right. Use the one in the middle. That would have made more sense than the one they have, which is just this little tiny red sign that says man in boiler. So I don't know why they didn't go with a historic sign, but
yeah, a bunch of cheapos, dude. It was $2.75. Pony up, Disney.
Just one sign, right?
Just one. You don't need 6 of them, 12, 25, or 50 of them. Just get one. You should get 6, a couple backups.
Get 6, yeah. Put them on all the boilers, just for fun. Anyway, so again, that's kind of a detail that kind of hits you over the head with how dangerous this place is in a kind of creepy way.
Yeah, I gotta admit, like, other power plants are equally as creepy. I found one in Carlsbad that used one of these, but like, if you look at they're a natural gas plant in California. So they're heating up water, turning a turbine through the steam process, but it's done through natural gas. Like, this is some scary stuff, and this is modern, right? Like, this is a natural gas boiler, but they also are using, but not that symbol. I don't know if that's, like, when did that symbol stop being in vogue? I didn't even know that symbol existed. That's super interesting. Right. But this sign just says, "Danger, man in boiler, blow off on live boilers must not be opened while this sign is displayed."
Right. So they're telling you, like, don't boil alive the person who's in the boiler.
Yeah, there's a human in there. Please don't light this.
Right. So at some point they must have changed it to this more danger sign, which maybe they just stopped trying to educate people on what that symbol meant, and they just decided to go with danger.
Just stop going in them. They're like, whatever, just don't go in there.
I imagine they have to go in sometimes to fix them.
Dude, if the fact that somebody has a business selling these signs means that lots of people were in fuego.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Safety first. Maybe safety
That is
last.
horrible.
Yeah, it's awful. Which that's why I'm saying, like, this is a little on the nose for.
So wait, you're telling me? I wonder in Florida if there is one sign somewhere, like on a backside of a boiler.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe.
I need to know if we're burning people up.
It's possible. But it seems to be that these kinds of things are more prevalent in the DCA and DLP versions than Florida, from what I can tell. That being said, let's keep moving. There's a lot of pipes and things here. We've already done a lot of talk about the mechanical functionality of the boiler room in our Florida version. So unless you want to, Kirk, I don't feel like we need to get back into what the boiler room does necessarily. I just feel like we've talked it to death.
Ready? This is how I feel. Twice on the pipe. If the answer is no, Kate. Oh, my darling, move right on. Yeah, I mean, honestly, what do you need? Pipes and gauges, dude.
Boiler room is most likely heating the hotel or creating hot water. That's what it is. So we've already talked about it quite a bit in the Florida version, so we're not going to go for the functionality here. But there is also just some pictures here of gauges and things that are on the walls. And the storytelling here is that there should be a maintenance person who is watching all of these things and making sure that they don't boil over, because when boilers boil over or the pressure builds, they could explode, and that's its own kind of danger. But there's nobody in here and hasn't been in a long time. So there's lots of gauges here. and pipes and things. And some of them are even labeled in Disneyland Paris. There'll be ones that say cold water, hot water, live steam, those kinds of things. But that's what you see here on the right side is a whole bunch of gauges and knobs and things to turn that you can't turn, but they could turn to adjust the pressure and whatnot. Because he's in the boiler. Mookie in our chat, the maintenance guy is gone because he's in the boiler, not because he disappeared.
Yeah, he was the last. Yeah, but like if he was the last one.
Yeah.
It's well, listen, maybe it's a spirited mechanic.
Yeah. There's the one that says live steam. And then we get into this area that's...
No, Kate, this is a live stream. It's a different thing.
My bad. Then we get to this area that is underneath the stairs. Basically, the stairs are the other queue that's going up to the upper queue. This is the area that's under the stairs. It's just kind of a work area, and there was a chair that was being repaired there. A whole bunch of tools and cans of paint, and one can of paint that was knocked over, and those kinds of things. It's really hard to tell what's here because these pictures are so dark, because it literally was under these stairs.
It's also weird. Why are they building the chair, working on the chair in this like really filthy, disgusting, like, because you would think that there's got to be like coal dusts, like what a horrible place to work on like a fancy chair.
I know. This is where also I think California is weaker in their storytelling for the tower, because they are repairing chairs and whatnot in the Florida version, but it's in the photo preview area. Remember that? Like,
right.
That
clean,
area?
nice.
Right. It's like a whole separate area, but they don't have that space here. So they just integrated it into the boiler room, which is weird. But yeah, that's what we have here is them repairing this chair. And this is what it looks like when it went up for auction, which is kind of interesting because they have glued or repaired a leg of the chair, and then they've tied something on it to kind of keep it held together, probably while the glue is drying, is my guess. But it's this kind of gold and green and red striped chair. Very Christmassy looking, actually, chair.
Yeah.
And then just some more pictures of what it looks like under there. And again, yeah, it's the exact same storytelling as the left side of the photo preview area in Florida, with a whole bunch of stuff to like fix things. And we'll also see a bit more of that upstairs as well later. On the back wall, there's also things stuck on this, almost look like a fuse box or something. And then they like maybe magnets or something, they stuck things to it. And I really can't really tell what these things are, but my guess is they're probably things for, either the work they're doing or the maintenance worker, personal things. There is kind of a pinup girl on a calendar. And Whoa. Kirk's covering his eyes again. But you can't really see her, so don't worry. She's blurry. She's a blurry pinup girl on a calendar. And then next to that, there is a ladder. Underneath some gauges, there is a sign that says safety check. And this is similar to the one that we see in the Florida version, where the last time it was checked was in July. It says 120 PSI on July 20th at 3 a.m. and then 94 PSI on July 21st. And then it doesn't give a time after that. So I think that the storytelling here is similar to Florida, that it's not checked in a very long time, since this would have been in October. They would have still been around. Well, unless that guy was in the boiler for a very long time being burned alive. It's hard to say. But
Kate's laughing at that, by the way. I am horrified. Kate is laughing.
It's ridiculous is what it is. But I think what we're supposed to see is that the maintenance hasn't really been done for a long time here. So you're actually in danger, because they should be having a safety check quite often, and they're not. And I think that's what they're doing here. Beyond that, there is a pipe dripping water effect that's across from the work area that's similar to what we see in Florida, but it's set up differently. It's not like dripping into a bucket or anything like that. It's like dripping into almost like a pipe that's set up for it, I guess. So that effect's been recently restored in the Florida version, but I think we only saw it once in here in this main section, which you could see from both the upper and lower queues. There is also some ambiance that's going on in the background here. There's a lot of deep mechanical hums that faded in and out, and rattling of chain noises and things like that. The lights in the room dimmed and flickered. They also have this like really, really dramatic lighting in here, which is different than Florida. Florida has more of, you really believe that you're stepping into kind of a real mechanical room that would be in use. And here, this like it's almost like movie dramatic. It's like
Yeah.
deep blues and purples, and like it's almost like a caricature of itself, if that makes sense.
It's too nice.
It's too nice. Yeah. The lighting is very theatrical in this version of the tower. And then we get to the creepy faced giant boiler. Kirk, do you have thoughts about this boiler before I talk about it?
I love it. I think it's great. It's ominous. It reminds me of the Brave Little Toaster.
Ah, yeah. Yeah. It reminds me of the, Home Alone furnace that we talked about, which would have, been out before this, that everybody was terrified by the furnace in the basement of Home Alone.
By the way, Kevin, not a nice kid.
No, definitely not.
Like, not a good kid at all, to be honest. He's very ungrateful for literally being a Nepo baby. And he's straight up like I'm dead serious. Like, we just watched the movie today and it was, it's very disappointing.
Yeah. Yes. They have a lot of money.
Insanely rich. I mean, they took 12 people on vacation to France, 4 of which are in first class. And then they're like, oh my gosh, my Rolex.
Yeah. And then they go to New York and he's like getting room service and they're staying in this like 2-story suite. And it's like, wow.
Well, that's because he's still, I mean, I guess his dad's credit card had to clear at the Plaza Hotel, but yeah.
Anyway, so this creepy faced furnace boiler, it reflects this horror trope of hidden faces to make objects look creepy. So I did a little bit of digging into this, going on a little bit of rabbit trail. And you can see this is the one that's in the Paris version versus DCA. But in November of 1904, there was an edition of Good Housekeeping magazine that actually showed wallpaper resembling faces and a child being terrified in his bed of that, which is actually quite funny, Kirk, because I was scared of faces in my wallpaper when I was a kid. So I so relate to this. Like, I had a weird looking wallpaper in my room as a kid that I swear that has faces that were looking at me. So, Mom, thanks for traumatizing me.
Yeah, that's not good.
But anyway, that's in 1904 that showed up. And then there's this shows up again and again of the idea of seeing faces and things. In 1989, the new Twilight Zone episode, Something in the Walls, has a young boy who claims there's something alive and threatening inside the walls of his apartment building, but no adult believes him. And as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that the walls were indeed hiding a malevolent presence. Disney attractions have used this idea of faces watching you since, the very beginning of Disneyland, and even as a carryover from the Disney films. This is a very, very old trope that's even older than Disney. But perhaps the most common one that we see is, of course, the Haunted Mansion. And we see the mansion is always watching you, right? There's faces literally everywhere in the mansion. We talk about this in our Haunted Mansion series that was 16 episodes long, so I won't get into it too much. But Imagineer Exitencio's daughters, Judy Ann and Tori, saw Robert Weiss's 1963 film The Haunting with some friends. They came home and told their dad that he needed to see it. So he organized a viewing with his fellow Imagineers in one of the Sweatbox theaters. And that is how they ended up with all of the inspiration for the mansion from that film, like the breathing and shaking doors in the corridor. And of course, the iconic wallpaper that watches you, which was designed by Imagineer Tanya Norris. So many thanks to our Disney history collaborator for this Tower of Terror series, Joshua L. Harris from the E82 project, for getting us this quote from Tanya. She said, "Don't just think of the rides, look at the detailing. That's what makes Disneyland a success. Walt wanted the detail and authenticity. Look and realize how much thought and effort. Disneyland is not for children. It's for people like you," which I thought was just a wonderful quote. So I wanted to share that.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great.
But she was the one that designed this iconic wallpaper that often is misattributed to Rolly Crump, that has actual eyes that are watching you, which is based off of a damask wallpaper, which often looked like it could have potential eyes, which I think was really interesting. And I found this, Kirk, that I thought was really fascinating, that I'd never made this connection before. This is not something I came up with. The full credit to the long forgotten Haunted Mansion blog for pulling this. But the wallpaper and then the woodwork in the load area in Florida in particular, has this like face, these two eyes with kind of like elongated thing, and they do look like each other, which I had never considered that before. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think it's the teeth. I never connected the two.
Right.
But yeah, similar.
Yeah, because of the elongated part on the bottom that has a very point like that. That look could, and it also has on the sides too. It has these extra like points. I really think that it's possible that one influenced the other, and probably the wallpaper came first. So I think that that's a fair thing to pull. But anyway, creepy faces watching you. Having this giant boiler face is super intimidating as you're walking towards it. It's gigantic. Like you don't get the full scale of it in this small picture here, but this thing is massive. You can see it from both the lower queue and the upper queue, and it's just huge. So I think it's supposed to be a little bit intimidating for you. But Kirk, again, I'm going to go back to like the man in boiler thing. To me, this feels very, very obviously threatening. And
yes,
I'm wondering, do you think it's more effective for it to be more subtle or more obvious?
I mean, I think more obvious is better, because then people can appreciate and then actually stare at it longer. Where if for example, like the mouth area was closed and you couldn't see the glowing as much, I don't know if it would draw your attention.
Well, I just wonder if like we should have boilers that have faces on them. That's where I'm going.
You have to have boilers with faces.
But we didn't in the Florida version, right?
On the backside, we have a little bit of a face.
Well, kind of, but it's so much more
it's
subtle.
Not a good one,
right?
Yeah, it's not as good as this. No,
like I would argue that this took it like slightly too far, where it made it really obviously a face, versus the Florida version where it's like it could be a face, but it's clearly a boiler. And
I just think this face is a little bit goofy.
Yeah.
Like it's not necessarily that it's a poor choice in making it more face-like. I think it's just is a little bit, because it's got like a rounded bottom, and it like genuinely looks like a silhouette.
Yeah, and almost like it has legs on it, which is so funny because it's like standing. It has like two tubes that come down from it. Which is just its supports. But I don't know. To me, it feels that maybe the design of this particular one is just a little bit on the nose for me. That's all.
Yes, I think that's where it lands.
Yeah. But it is iconic, like people remember it, recognize it, love it, but it's, I don't know. For me, I would prefer the subtle scariness of the Florida one, which is hard for me to admit.
I just want to say as an aside too, I just absolutely love that you took us on that, because it's so true, and it's something that I would have completely glossed over, but I love the fact that you added like more context to it. A lot of times I said this even when I was in the parks, and I think I said this to you last week. I can't remember. The holidays has got my mind all jumbled around. But when I ran into somebody who is a Distorian fan and was talking about, I love watching and listening to you and Kate, I always reiterate to them, because I do genuinely feel this way. And I know you go, oh, you do a lot of research and stuff. When I am in this show, I am as much of a student as I am a host. And that's why I like showing up. I have so much fun learning as a student of Kate's, and trust me, Kate will always be my go-to Disney historian. And I said this to the guy, I go, dude, you don't know how blessed we all are, me included, to have her share these kind of stories, because like the connections you make, the high level research you do is just, it's always so, I mean, it's unfathomable to the amount of stuff that you do. So it's just like, it's so fantastic. Like, it's like, this is like such a present for even me. So I don't know.
Cute.
I was kind of like in that zone, and in that story, I really felt that like emotion.
Aw, thank you, Kirk. That's really sweet.
Yeah, dude, you're awesome, man. Like, this is so like, this is why this show is great.
Thank you. It is a lot of work, but it's a labor of love. It's a really wonderful thing to get to preserve these details and highlight these Imagineers and tell these stories and get to make these connections. It's exciting. It's like a treasure hunt for me. So I love doing it. It is a lot of work, but I love it. And I'm.
But you uncover these things and you make them accessible to where otherwise they would be lost. And I think like you're giving us guidance and direction in a place that we didn't even know existed, but now we feel not only comfortable, but also like experts because of everything that you set up for us.
Hey. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that so much. I'm feeling a little speechless. So thank you. Thank you for being along for the ride. It's really fun. It is kind of a bit of my comic relief in the week to get to do this with you every week. So thank you for being here, for showing up, for, and for you've taught me some things too along the way. So I always love it when you get excited where you're like, I brought Kate something she didn't know. And then how thrilled you get with that.
Yeah.
That's like my favorite moment.
That's I try to go for one a week if I can.
I love that. Before we move forward and go into the mechanics desk, which you're not going to want to miss, we are going to take a quick little break and talk about a few things that are going on at Walrus Carp and Disney Cicerone. So Kirk, what you have to over there here in the new year?
I don't have a visual for this because I normally I talk about our clothes. I talk about Walrus Carp. I talk about that, but I didn't know when this was going to happen. But we just recently got our approval system moving forward with a theme park planning app that we have that's called Mode, MOWD. So I've been working on this with my partner for quite some time, and it basically allows you to see everything in an estimated form with lots of information at your fingertips for whatever food you're looking for, whatever rides or entertainment, and then be able to navigate within right now the Orlando theme park. So both Disney World and Universal Studios, as well as SeaWorld. And we're ever expanding. And next year, or I guess technically this year, we're looking to add California. So Yay! I know we're talking about DCA and everything. So I just did the crowd calendar work for Knott's Berry Farm, Six Flags Magic Mountain, Disneyland, Disney's California Adventure, and Universal Studios Hollywood. So those are on our docket for new parks to add. So we'll be East Coast and West Coast, very much similar to how Kate and I are. So look for Mode for free, or there's also a subscription version if you want to have more robust features on your Apple App Store.
That's exciting. What do you think is like the main thing that sets Mode apart from any other Disney apps out there? What is it that you want them to know about?
So the big thing for me is when you're in the parks and you just need something desperately, you can find it. So whether that's food or entertainment times, like when is this show? And you don't have to jump through like 40 different hoops to find it. It's right there in front of you in a very simple way. So we just help you navigate easier and faster and more effectively so that you can spend time with your family in the parks versus just like sitting on your phone the entire time. We want you to basically be able to make your own decisions based on very easy to consume. We could go here to get this. So it's like, all right, I want to go on these rides. We're going to get pizza at one of these 3 places that all have it because we just typed in pizza and we know this place has cheese. That one has pepperoni. That one has flatbreads, fancy one. Like it's got all of that. It's just so easy.
That's great.
And honestly, like downright, you're going to need the other apps, right? You're still going to need My Disney Experience to make your mobile orders and your advanced dining reservations and your virtual queues and your lightning lanes and your park passes and all that stuff. But man, does this thing cut through the clutter when it comes to making in-park pivotal decisions of just like traversing around. We don't tell you what to do. We don't say like, go do this now. But man, do you have all the information to make a decision if it's right to go left or straight or right.
Well, congratulations. That's really amazing, Kirk. Well done.
Very exciting, very different.
Cannot wait to use
it. Check out MOWD.io, mode.io, or type it into your Apple App Store. Android coming soon. And thanks for everybody for being so patient. But I think this is going to be something that will be game-changing in terms of making you a theme park expert without needing to do all the studying or craziness. So
that's worth it.
Kate, what you got going on?
Oh, I'm busy editing my next book that hopefully will be out just before Valentine's Day because it is a Disney history book that is nonfiction that is about how we experience love through the lens of Disney history. So that's coming up pretty quickly as I am currently in Disney World, I wanted to talk about Who the Mirror Reflects, which is the third book in the Pixie Dust in the Parks series. And this one does have a little bit Tower of Terror / Sunset Boulevard setting in it as well. But this is about two Disney history-loving cast members who find each other in the reflection of the rivers of America and the Magic Kingdom. So in case you're missing the rivers of America. But soon their perception of their relationship becomes distorted by their past. As their inner villains threaten to pull them apart, they discover that choosing love, even when it's hard, is the most magical gift of all. So if you just need kind of a cozy read in the new year, or if you have made a resolution to read more and maybe get off your screens a little bit. The whole series, the Pixie Dust in the Park series, is kind of a romantic suspense set, but it's all set in the Disney parks and it all incorporates Disney history. So that's available. If you go to disneycicerone.com, you can get a signed copy, or you can head on over to Audible or Amazon. I have audiobooks that I do read to you. So if in case you want to hear my voice reading the book to you, it's available there. But that's what I got going on. Lots of writing, editing, all those kinds of things.
The best way to consume. That's the Walrus Carp Kirk preferred method. I just make Kate do it, dude. It's so much better. Just let Kate read it to you.
Yeah. And it's fun. The audiobooks are a lot of work, but it's in the end, it's nice that I get to read it to you guys and share my work that way. So I appreciate that. Okay, let's jump back in. We're going to head on over to the mechanics desk that is in both California Adventure and in Disneyland Paris, and they look ever so slightly different. I do have a note from the show info guide from Imagineering. It says the boiler room is especially rich in prop and set details that suggest an actual working facility, from the time clock to the maintenance man's desk filled with photos and personal effects, which is what we're seeing here. I know Kirk's going to walk us through some of the stuff that's on these desks, but I do want to make a little note about the radio that's sitting on it, which is an RCA Victor Tombstone style radio, possibly a Model 5T from 1936 or 1937. It is a 5-tube super heterodyne chassis radio, a type of radio receiver that converts incoming radio signals to a single fixed intermediate frequency, IF, before amplification and detection. So instead of trying to amplify every station at its original broadcast frequency, this radio mixes the incoming signal with a locally generated frequency, producing a new signal, the IF, that is much easier to filter and amplify accurately. So this design dramatically improved sound quality of the radio, selectivity, and tuning stability, especially compared to earlier radio types. So the word of the day is super heterodyne. So that is something we've talked about, I think, previously on Distory, but it's a big word. So I thought we'd go over it again. But
that is a big word.
You do see that one here. I have lots of pictures of this desk. This is all in California Adventure. But before I get into anything that I have to share here, Kirk, why don't you take the wheel and walk us through some of the stuff here on the maintenance desk?
Can you pull up a maintenance desk picture, which you probably already do?
Yeah, I got one. Yep. Go for it.
Okay. Can we go? Oh, that one's good. That's perfect. Because I'd like to, I think the best way to approach this desk is to look at everything, as a whole and just talk about, the individual items very briefly and then deep dive a handful of them because there's a lot on here and there's only a few that I think tell some really unique stories and just are kind of fun.
Yeah.
We have a thermos. We have a flashlight. We have lots of logs and notes. We have a flask. We have a pair of spectacles, but they're like almost like welders ones because they have like a fun like little hook on the back, but they also have like a side flap on. Oh
yeah.
I couldn't find the specifics of them, but you notice that the lenses are different than like your standard technical reading glasses. But it's definitely for somebody who is looking down or even would be lying on their back. So for a mechanic, that would also, if that audio was terrible, because I'm like looking up and looking down, you know why. I was actually acting that out for realism. But they wouldn't fall off a mechanic's face, which I think is like super, super smart.
Yeah.
There's a whole entire row, as you imagine, of somebody who works in a hotel of all of the skeleton keys to get you everywhere. There's various wrenches. There also appears to be a wife photo as well as a daughter photo in two separate frames.
Well,
there is a flat.
Wait, before you move on.
Yeah.
Those that one did change because it's like an older lady with a kid here for the picture
Okay.
frames. And then, but earlier it was a younger woman and then the same daughter. So I don't know why.
Oh
that
yeah, I'm
changed.
looking at another one.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the young lady photo,
Yeah.
not the old lady. So like it could be like mom and then his actual daughter and then wife and daughter maybe.
Yeah. I don't know why it changed, but it definitely did change over the course of it. This is all California Adventure that we're looking at here. We'll look at Paris in a minute, but yeah. Okay. Continue.
There's also a book, like a manual, and underneath that says cooling system service. I couldn't find that specific manual, but my assumption is it's for the heating system. So,
Yeah.
or the cooling system. And then there's various like lubricants. Then there's something that it looks like the top of a trophy almost. It's like a metal bronzed figure. I don't know what that is, but it kind of looks like he's like a Heisman trophy holder, you know, like he's got like a football in his right hand.
Where?
And it's over. He's looks like he's throwing it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. What is that?
You know, that's what it looks like to me, is like the top of a trophy, but I don't have a clue. Like it looks like he's polishing it because there's several rags on top of it. So if it was bronze, that would make sense. But again, there's no like base to it. So
That's
I'm not
weird.
sure.
Yeah.
We have a giant steam gauge that has its framing removed from it. It almost looks like a port window for a ship when they've removed the framing of it. There is a massive newspaper, which I didn't look up because you are like Miss Article newspaper person. If you didn't look it up, no big deal.
It's the same
Yeah.
newspaper that is everywhere in the
Oh, is
tower.
it?
Yeah, it's the one that we've seen in this entire series. Is the exact same one with.
You know why? Is because the dude's showing. A lot of times I
Yeah.
just see that headline, the 5 more ships sunk.
Yeah, and then the one about the woman who stuffed all the people in the suitcases. It's the same thing. So it's the same front page we've seen everywhere in every version of the tower. And
Oh, perfect.
so yep.
There's also a flask because Homeboy doesn't like to do things straight. He's got a little, it gets a little cold down there. I don't know why he has it. There's various wrenches. There's hammers. There's also like lubricating, like syringe as well. And that's all the things. Oh, and there's a desk lamp. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of stuff.
It
right?
is. Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about my favorite item on this, which is a thermos. Now, you might go, well, Kirk, why does this matter, this thermos? Thermoses are pretty dope, dude. I actually really like them because obviously you keep things hot or cold for a long time. I didn't realize that there was like an amazing amount of history behind thermoses. Like you probably wouldn't, but this is actually one. It's technically not a thermos because Thermos is the brand. This is a Stanley.
Oh.
So, yo,
Trendy.
where all my pick-me's at? Let's grab this thing because it's this is a Stanley Ferrostat vacuum bottle. It keeps liquids piping hot or icy cold. I'm showing a advertisement from the 1920s. The Stanley Ferrostat vacuum products. It will not break. That was their claim to fame, that it will not break.
It will dent though.
They will definitely dent. But here's what's crazy, dude. Like there's some like backstory to Stanley, and I'm just going to give you the broad strokes of it. But the Stanley Bottle Company was founded in 1913 when William Stanley Jr. was 55 years old, and he was born like right before the American Civil War. When he was 25 years old in 1883, he helped work with Thomas Edison, which is crazy cakes, for the first electrical power plant. And he also worked with Nikola Tesla and specifically with Tesla coils and long distance connectivity with communication lines. But later down the story, it's in 1890, the Stanley Electric Manufacturing Company is established in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And the Thomas Edison General Electric Company is going to purchase the majority shares of Stanley's company in 1903. So now Homeboy worked with Tesla. Now he's owned by Thomas Edison. And he was like, mainly when they started, they were an electric manufacturing company, particularly with AC transmissions. But in this process, William Stanley developed a welding solution for insulators. And he discovered how he could keep a pot of coffee hot for an entire day's worth of work without any kind of electricity or any kind of heating element. It was all done with metalwork. And previous to this, I was able to find, oh, here it is. This is like a vintage Stanley. So imagine you girly pops drinking out of this thing.
What is that? It's like an urn.
Yeah, that was like the original one. And a lot of them had like glass innard structures, which made them incredibly not stable. So in 1913, William Stanley invented and designed the vacuum bottles with two steel walls, which used a welding technique he learned while working on those transformers, and filled the open space between the steel walls with charcoal dust, providing not only insulation for heat and cold, but also strength for durability. So he was so confident in the process that they created the slogan, "It will not break." And it gave him a manufacturing process trademark until 2009, when they stopped using Charvec or charcoal vacuum sealing as a part of their process. So,
and then they took off and started a trend, and then everybody needed a Stanley in all various colors, and here we are.
Yeah, and that didn't happen until 2024. So, if this is anything to let you know, don't stop going for your dreams and passions, because it was 1913 this thing was invented.
Yeah, if you think of all those people that he was hanging out with, they all had their day in the sun a long time before. I'm glad that Stanley finally got his day in the sun. Like, he might not have been alive for it, but at least people finally appreciate Stanley.
Dude, I mean, I remember my very first vacuum steel walled cup. It was a Starbucks one. Mel lost it. I love you, Mel, but you lost it. It was my favorite cup. It's all good. That thing would keep my coffee so hot that by like fourth period, because I used to teach high school history, fourth period, my coffee was like, it was still 212. Like, it was boiling. It was like crazy. I would have to like take the top off because it just was so well insulated. Now my coffee is my container now that's double. It's not as good at insulation. It only keeps it hot for like maybe 2.5 hours.
Yeah, not great. You need the little trendy ones. I don't know if those insulate very well though.
No way.
Ones, they're like leak out the top of them. Oh. But anyway.
Oh yeah. No, dude, you need that one. You need the that, what do they call the thing? They called it Ferrostat. You need the Ferrostat. They have lifetime guarantees. I bet you could turn this sucker in and still get a new one.
Yeah, it's crazy. Did you have anything else you want to talk about on the desk in particular?
I did find some valve wrenches, which is what I think the wrench with the gearing is.
Okay.
But there wasn't like a specific one for that. I just found valve wrenches.
Yeah, that's like my search history is like.
This is really... And who feels like the tool now? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So that is a really great overview of what's on the DCA desk. I have just a few photos from Paris. Oh, I also have these gauges that went up for auction just to show you, what used to be there at, I don't know if this is specifically from the desk, but this is definitely from the boiler room of the Tower of Terror from DCA when it went up for auction. But this is the Paris version. I'm actually very proud of this photo. It's like, good job, little camera. You did this low light photography very well. But this gives you a good overview. Their lunchbox, and like, they don't have a thermos necessarily, but they have a lunchbox. It's like a round lunch pail, which I think is really interesting. It's a different kind than we saw there. And then there is a work light. There is a lamp, a gauge, just like in DCA, the same newspaper. There's a clipboard. There's also a note on the corner of the desk that I unfortunately didn't think to zoom in on and take a picture of close enough to read it. So I don't know what that says, unfortunately. There's some locks on the right-hand side and a fan, which we saw in the Florida version. We saw them working on a fan. So, and locks as well. So it's like they just pulled some inspiration from there. Then there's a box of tools sitting on the back corner. But it's very, very similar to the other one, except we don't get that guy like holding a football or whatever. So that doesn't exist here.
I just got to talk about one thing.
Okay.
So the lunch pail is cool, right? But this is welcome to Kirk reaching.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with Tower of Terror, but just a fun little Disney tie-in. So that style of like nested lunch pail is what we would refer to as a tiffin if you were in India. And then you have, of course, over in Animal Kingdom, you've got tiffins as the restaurant, which there are lots of tiffins on display in that restaurant if you've never actually been inside it and seen them. But yeah.
I didn't know that's what that was or where that name came from. So,
oh yeah, dude. And also if you go into Tiffin's, if you make a hard right, you're going to love this. There are so many concept arts of Dak drawn by Joe Rohde from scans of his notebook from his time in Africa.
I feel like you showed me that one time when we went to go have churros at the Nomad Lounge and we walked by it, but I need to go back and take a closer look at that.
Yeah, you need to take like photos and pictures because there's a lot of lore and history for Dak that's in there.
I love that. I love how much research they did for that park. Mm-hmm. That's brilliant.
I just like lunch. So as to, if I see a lunch pail, you might even get me talking about Return to Oz, you never know.
So behind the desk, there is a ladder that goes up to that faced boiler. And then there's a whole bunch of spare parts. And then I did look up, there is a bottle, a box, and some random nuts and bolts and things that are sitting here. But there's also this round container with a handle that is actually an oil can. I found one that's almost identical to it, which I thought was fun. So that's what that is an oil can. And it looks like this just to compare. And then we head on over to the load area there. So that's the end of the lower queue. So let's head on upstairs and see what that one looks like instead. This is
moving on up.
This is again from that Land of Shadow and Substance blog. So thank you for this kind of rough sketch here. As we head up from the stairs from below, that we see an industrial fan on the wall. And then we run right into the storage area. We're going to see that top of the man and boiler. We'll see this more of the pipes and chains that are hanging, and then the dripping pipe, we'll see it from above, and the face-shaped boiler from above. So basically you're seeing like the same stuff that you saw downstairs, except for a few things. So that's what we're going to point out here is the differences from downstairs. So as we head up the stairs, this is what the stairs look like. They're next to a whole bunch of gauges and whatnot. And then this is going upstairs. We head at the top of the stairs. We see this storage area that's behind some like chain link fence and like a door that's like a chain link door. And there is actually a small plaque with a poem on it. And you're going to find this very familiar, Kirk, because it says, "It's easy enough to be pleasant when life hums along like a song, but the man worthwhile is the man who can smile when everything goes dead wrong," which we saw at the maintenance desk in the Florida version. This is a line from a poem called "The Man Worthwhile" by Ella Wheeler Wilcox from 1850 to 1919 when she lived, who's a prolific American poet known for her inspirational motivational verse. So the rest of the stanza after this is, "For the test of the heart is trouble, and it always comes with years, and the smile that is worth the praises of earth is the smile that shines through the tears." So this is basically a good example of stoic optimism, not blind cheerfulness, but a choice to face adversity with dignity. But I think they used it obviously as foreshadowing for what's going to happen to us in the elevator. So we already talked about that a lot. I don't need to get into all the details about it, but that is hanging up there, and it's the first thing you see as you come up the stairs. This is the version that is in Florida. It's not a huge plaque. It's just like a tiny little card that's sitting on the workbench just to give you a refresher of what that looked like. Most of this area is just kind of filled with a whole bunch of random junk and whatnot, but there is a key cabinet that's up here and some like fabric that's draped near it. And this is unfortunately the best photo I have of it, which is kind of rough, not gonna lie. It's pretty dark. And then there is a workbench that's on the left side, like a work desk. And so this, to me, Kirk, combined with that chair area downstairs, these are the two kind of like maintenance areas where they repair stuff that's broken in the tower. So we see a whole bunch of clocks that are on the shelf, and we see just kind of random things you would see in the hotel that maybe stopped working or needed repair, and they ended up here in this like caged in area. Then we get to this wall, this is different than the Florida version quite significantly. It looks like a rectangle that's been patched up, and then it does have those chalk marks that we've seen before, the exit of Florida, that is the little girl lost ones from the Twilight Zone. So this is what they look like in the episode itself. That's from 1962 episode in season 3, episode 26, in which a young girl rolls under her bed and disappears into another dimension in the wall. We've talked about this a lot in this series, so I'm not going to get too far into it. But it's also in the exit of the Florida version, which looks like this. But the interesting part about this, Kirk, is that if you got close to the wall, guess what happened?
What happens?
You could hear the little girl through the wall.
Ew.
She's like, Mommy, she's like, I'm not, she can hear her voice through the wall, basically in the 5th dimension, which to me is creepy because she wasn't locked into the wall. It looks like they've like plastered her in there. Like she can't get back out.
Yeah, that's so scary.
Just really creepy. So people, though, you had to be close to the wall and almost like lean against it or like really, really close to it to be able to hear that at all. So a lot of people didn't even notice that her voice was coming through the wall, which is pretty interesting. Again, they're not subtle with their like creepiness level in this area. They're like kind of hit you over the head with it in this version of the tower. You can see all the catwalks and what it looks like up on the ceiling. And then you can see the boiler from up above with the creepy face. And then you get into the service elevator area, the load area, with the elevators. It looks very similar to the Florida version. I would say the only difference is in Disneyland Paris, they do have the spiral staircase that goes in between them, which I thought was pretty interesting. And it might be in DCA too. I don't have a good photo of that, but I did take a photo of this because I thought it was really interesting to have this like metal spiral staircase in the load area. It was pretty neat. From the show info guide, it says members of the hotel staff are on hand near the entrance to the service elevators, the very same elevators Rod Serling indicated in the Twilight Zone episode seen in the library. Each elevator cab seats up to 21 guests in 3 rows. Members of the hotel staff assist the guests in boarding and cheerfully, perhaps too cheerfully, send them on their way into their own episode of the Twilight Zone.
I got one more thing before we finish.
Okay.
Let me enlighten you.
All right.
I want to talk about the lights on the ceiling.
Let's do it. We love lamps here on Distory. Let's go for it.
I can't we leave no lamps unturned. Well, we're looking at a industrial pendant reflector light, but the exciting part to me, and I'm going to add a little piece of your vocab because this is only for Kate.
Okay.
If you're not Kate, tune out. Kate loves lanterns in particular.
I do.
That use a reflector plate.
Yes.
And so this one has an RLM dome on it, which stands for Reflector Luminaire Manufacturer, which is the industrial light fixtures which have a deep metal shade designed to cast light downward.
Oh.
Like it's on here. So originally it was supposed to be reflector light microscopy in engineering. But then they realized that it's more for utilitarian lighting. So it turned into Reflector Luminaire Manufacturer, RLM domes, which would be made out of things like aluminum, steel, or copper, and were typically powder coated or hit with enamel.
Wow. That is cool. Okay, well, I think that pretty much wraps up the boiler room of California Adventure and Disneyland Paris. And then we have one episode to go in this series before we wrap up all of the Tower of Terror.
I'll be popping bottles, dude.
It's been a year. It was not a full year, but close to a full year of our lives.
6 months. 6 months of the Tower of Terror.
It was a lot. But it was wonderful. It has been a great ride. We're not quite done yet, though. We have one more. We got to go on this sucker. And we got to finish up with the exit, which is a little bit different than the Florida version. So, Kirk, do you have any final thoughts here as we wrap up this episode of Distory?
Dude, and here I thought the Haunted Mansion had boundless realms.
I know this is at least 10 episodes longer than the Haunted Mansion, I think. So we're getting,
which is crazy,
we're
Case.
pushing 30. We're getting there. It's there. Yeah. So... Well, thank you everybody for joining us for this episode of Distory here in the new year. We appreciate you guys so much for being with us, and we will see you next time for another episode of Distory.